Welcome back to another episode of LA Fishguys. We got a telephone call last night from one of our long-term customers, the fellow with the Fowler tank. That's the fish only with live rock. He indicated he came out to feed his tank last night and everything's dead, including the tank as far as its operation is concerned. So we're gonna drive out this morning and try to get an idea as to what's wrong with the tank. There's only 3 electrical components in there: the lighting, a heater, and a submersible pump. I suspect it's probably the pump might have failed, but the interesting thing is the reason the whole tank went down was he indicated it tripped the breaker, the main breaker in the house. So he's turned off the power strip that runs the electrical to the tank, turned the power strip back on, the breaker panel back on, and all the other equipment is working fine. So it seems as though whatever tripped it is most likely specific to the tank. So let's get out there and get an idea as to what's going on.
We've arrived to an obvious lifeless aquarium, as you can see from some of the dead soldiers at the bottom of the tank. Now, the homeowner indicated that the problem seemed to be electrical. Now, we've got a power strip here, but it was the breaker on the panel outside that actually tripped. There's a couple of electrical components down in the open end of the wet-dry trickle filter, that being the submersible water pump and a heater.
Well, I can see already what the problem is. That's the heater down inside there, and it's cracked. Probably let all of its electricity out, which is what tripped the breaker. So let's go ahead and unplug the heater, turn the power strip back on. Water's pumping. Lights just came on, unfortunately. We've lost fish.
So it's now become obvious as to what caused the aquarium to shut down. I'd like to know what caused the problem with the heater and why it created the actual problem. This heater was most likely installed in that filter back when I set the tank up. And this tank was part of a group of customers that I purchased from the tropical fish store that I previously worked at, and then began aquarium design. That was back in '99 or 2000. So that's got to be 10 years ago. So is this heater 10 years old?
Well, you can see here what's left of the heater. It cracked, water got in, and it came apart. Now, this sump has a bag of carbon inside of it, and you can see here that the balance of the heater is somehow adhered or stuck itself to the bag of carbon.
So you have to ask the question, why is the heater stuck to the bag of carbon? And the first answer is, anytime the heater touches anything, that's going to become a hot spot, and it's probably going to generate much greater amounts of heat, causing a weaker point. But did you notice all that calcareous buildup on there? Is that something that came from the heater or the electricity?
So it's not sure. Certainly the heater is the source of the problem. It opened up, allowed its voltage to enter into the water, which is what tripped the circuit breaker. Why it didn't trip the power strip, I don't know. So this here is an easy fix. The question is, why is it stuck to the carbon bag? Was that part of the problem? And of course the end result was we lost all the fish in the tank. So what I'm going to do is put a replacement heater in, do a large water change, and pull out all those dead fish. We'll then bring the homeowner up to speed as to what happened, what apparently caused the problem, and get his permission to start restocking the tank.
After we get done doing that 20-gallon water change today, it'll be another week before I'm back out here for regular scheduled aquarium service. That would be the point in time where I would change out the decorations in the tank, clean the algae from the inside of the tank, and would normally perform another water change at that time. So it'll be another week before we bring out the starter fish, and we're going to treat this tank as though it was starting completely over again. We'll use damsel fish to take the tank through whatever cycle, and at the same time, I hate to use them as a canary in a coal mine, but we'll use those damsels just to make sure that everything is recovered in this tank once we get it back up on and running.
It's unfortunate that we lost those fish. I've had those in here for a number of years. Butterfly fish, a huma huma, lemon peel angel, a pair of clowns, a pair of damsels, and of course there's some royal grammas in the tank as well. We're going to go ahead and start doing the water change, try to dilute whatever toxicity is built up in the tank over the last day or so. And then the tank, once the temperature comes back up, should biologically catch up to itself.
So the first step in resolving the problem is to add enough water to raise the water level down in the reservoir or filter below.
Since the heater's down in the sump that sits below the tank, it broke, and it's probably left some pieces, possibly some metal down there. So we're going to go ahead and try to siphon the debris off the bottom of the sump as well. It becomes a little bit trickier because we don't have the advantage of the height to do a siphon. So we're going to have to do a shallow siphon and try to keep all the plumbing as low as possible so that we can create that siphon.
A siphon requires a water source that sits higher than where you want to draw the water down to. Well, the filter sits at ground level, and that's where the bucket sits as well. Hence the reason for wanting to try to raise the water level in the filter as much as possible without overflowing it, so that I can create as great a difference in the water levels between what's in the filter and in the bucket. I can then go ahead and do a siphon of whatever debris happens to be sitting at the bottom of the wet-dry trickle filter. Once I'm satisfied I've drawn as much of the foreign debris off the bottom of the filter as possible, I'll then go ahead and start on the balance of that 20-gallon water change by siphoning water directly from the aquarium.
So placing the heater down in the sump is an okay thing. Not only does it hide from view seeing the heater in the tank, but the sump's also a place where all the water passes through. I wouldn't consider this particular situation a problem as far as the application is concerned. I might consider this a problem as far as the quality of the heater. But then on the other hand, I've had this tank for, gosh, pushing 10 years now, and that heater has got to have been in there for a good 8 of it. So I don't fault the heater at all. It's a $30 heater, and it's an extreme situation. You can see I'm a little dressed up this morning because it's pretty cool. I'd say it's in the 50s in here. The water temperature in the tank is probably in the 50s, so that little heater was really having to work, and it just reached its capacity. So what we're going to do is put a new heater in there. Now, here's one of the ways you might prevent this kind of situation from happening. 2 heaters that total half the wattage needed. General rule of thumb, 3 watts per gallon of water. This is about a 100-gallon tank, so you'd want 300 watts of heater or heaters in the tank. This is a 125-watt heater. It's what I had on hand, and it should have a second 125 watt heater placed inside there. The idea being that if one of the heaters fails, the other one will continue to go. Now, here's the reality. This last heater, when it failed, it popped the breaker. Unfortunately, nothing's going to stop that from occurring again, and the only way to make sure that a problem doesn't end up as a result of is paying a little bit more attention to the tank. And the reality is this tank's out here in kind of a enclosed patio, a sauna room we'll call it. So they might only come out here 2-3 times during the day, and it is every day. And he did come out and catch it the first time he came out. Unfortunately, the tank had been down for a number of hours and he had lost the fish at that point. So I'm going to put in one heater today. I'm going to pick up a second heater for a total of 250 watts, which is just a little shy of the 300 needed. But the other issue is as the heaters increase in wattage, they also increase in size. And as it gets bigger, this may not fit down into the sump. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in. We've already done that 20-gallon water change, so other than cleaning the outside of the glass, there's not much more we can do until the tank catches up to itself, and then we'll start adding some more fish back to it slowly. So what's the motto of the story? I don't know if there is one this time. You might say select better pieces of equipment, but I think the reality is that all aquarium heaters tend to be within a similar price range. So the only real good explanation is just a regular monitoring of the tank. And in this particular situation, they're feeding it on a daily basis. So other than having it in the living room in front of you all the time, I don't see any way around it. It's just one of those fluke things that occurred. For whatever reason, the heater had a malfunction. It caused the glass tube to break, which allowed water in there. That in turn caused a direct short as far as the outlet box or breaker box outside is concerned. A little surprising it didn't trip the power strip, but power strips are also an inexpensive piece of equipment that you tend to trust your aquarium to. It didn't interrupt the circuit in this case, but then again, it didn't fail either. So the unfortunate downside is we lost a handful of fish, say maybe 10 of them, that we've actually had for a number of years. So my customer lost his little wet pets, or his little buddies, and I guess we'll just have to get him some more.
And you'll have to forgive me for being a little callous. Yes, it does bother me to lose fish, but you can't get all caught up in it. I've been in this business for long enough that if I allow it to really bother me, I wouldn't be able to do my job. And you got into the hobby for a particular reason, and that was to enjoy fish. So, as the motto of the show goes, keep moving forward.